And we are broadcasting live today from the American Legion Post 10 in Albany, Oregon. I'm Dave Adams, and so very glad that they allowed us to come in here. They've actually, I guess it was a bingo game. Is there a bingo game going on in the other room? Anyway, they rearranged some of the activities here at the American Legion Post 10 so that we could come in here and do our show. Of course, today is D-Day, and a very, very important date in the history of the United States and the history of this country, because of what happened on this day. And we have two fine gentlemen with me that are World War II veterans. First of all, thank you for the service to your country.
You're welcome.
And what's your name, sir?
Larry Swain.
Larry Swain, and you are a World War II veteran. Which branch of the service?
I was in the Navy.
What did you do in the Navy during World War II?
Well, I was on a CBE. It's a small carrier. I spent about 2.5 years on them. We started in on the Marianas campaign and went the rest of the way. When D-Day come, we were still fighting yet. It wasn't over for us.
You were still fighting it out in the Marianas.
Pacific.
That would be Pacific.
Pacific, yeah.
Okay. How old were you when you were in World War II?
I joined the Navy when I was 17.
What was the attitude like in the United States during the Second World War?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot different than it is today. Probably about half of my class, senior class, took off and joined service somewhere.
Voluntarily?
Voluntarily, yeah. How stupid we was, in my case anyway, I was afraid the war was going to get over.
You wanted to see some action.
Well, I don't know, I hope teenagers are smarter today than what I was. Yeah, I got there and I'd like to have been elsewhere.
Well, thank you for the service to your country. Really appreciate it. So you were on carrier?
USS Squadron, CB 98.
CB 98. What did you do? What was your job?
Well, my battle station, I was a gunner on a 20 most of the time, or else 40s. But actually, after a while, I ran the ship service. That was like the barber shop, the laundry, that sort of thing.
What's it like to live on ship? Crowded?
It didn't have so much, but it's just day after day. And you get up at 4 daylight and stand gun watches, and all that sort of a thing. And they have general orders just before sunrise, because that's usually when, if you're going to get attacked from the air, that's when it was.
About sunrise?
Yeah. So everybody manned every ship, they all manned their guns, that time of day. Then we get caught flat-footed.
World War II veterans are called the world's greatest generation because they saved this country from tyranny, from being overran by the Axis powers. Most of the World War II veterans that I speak to are very, very humble about that. And do you like that term, being called the world's greatest generation?
I don't know. I never think much about it. It was just the way it was at that time.
It was just a job, you had to do it.
Well, like I said, it was a big difference before you went in, and a big difference what you thought after you got in there. Things got uncomfortable, you might say.
Very uncomfortable very quick. Well, today is the anniversary of the D-Day invasion. 160,000 Allied troops embarked on the beaches of Normandy in Europe in a campaign to free the Europe theater from the control of the Axis powers. More than 9,000 troops were killed on the D-Day invasion, but more than 100,000 troops managed to survive and started the march across Europe, which freed the world from the Axis powers. So a lot of people lost their lives. D-Day, it's been a few years ago now, but I believe it's something that we should pause and remember the sacrifice that was made this day.
Yeah, a lot of people died everywhere, anywhere, wherever there was a war. It wasn't just in the Pacific. It wasn't just in different places in Europe. It was not good anywhere. Somebody trying to kill you.
So you were in the Pacific.
Right.
How long after the D-Day invasion did you hear news about the invasion?
Oh, we got the news on board probably right afterwards, you know. Or at the time, it wasn't before, of course, but as soon as the invasion started, the word was out, you know.
What was the feeling like on board ship when they heard that the Allied powers had invaded Europe? Normandy invasion is underway. Was it a jubilant? What was the mood of the troops?
Well, I don't know. That's been a long time ago, but I think we were all glad to see it. We wasn't sure they were going to be able to get on. You know, in those days, going, getting on to France or wherever they were going to land, it wasn't too good. I mean, it didn't look very good.
Now you said, where did you go to school, high school?
Sweet Home.
Sweet Home. So you said half of your graduating class went down, and
of the boys, yeah.
Of the boys. Half of the boys in the graduating class went down and signed up for service in the military.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
Why was that? Was it the Pearl Harbor attack? What was it that triggered everybody to do that?
There was a lot more feeling, to whip them, you might say.
Whip them?
Yeah, you know.
Was there an anger over the Japanese attack of Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was just against both Europe and, before you went in. Of course, in my case, we were in the South Pacific, but no matter where you're at, I can see it wasn't good. There were some bad spots in Europe there.
Was there ever a fear that we would not win the war?
Oh, I don't know. We always, most of the people I knew, we always thought we would eventually, if you live long enough.
That was a big concern about surviving, just getting home to see your girlfriend and mom and dad.
Every time, you never knew from day to day, really. I mean, my compartment.
Hold that a little closer. There you go.
My compartment in ship service there, it's like in the laundry. That bulkhead that comes down right there, there isn't much protection from a torpedo. If it hit right there while you're there, or a suicide. That's what was really bad towards the end there.
The kamikaze?
Oh, yeah. It was started in the Philippines and really got worse in Okinawa. By that time, they were coming in waves. We lost. Actually, we lost more Navy people in Okinawa than the Army and Marines together. It was bad for the Navy at Okinawa. Suicide mainly.
The kamikaze suicide attacks.
In fact, Russ there, David Russell right here, he was on a destroyer, and he missed Okinawa, but he got his ship, sunk, and he survived. He was on a destroyer. And that's rough duty. I wasn't any part of those destroyers during the war.
What was rough about destroyer duty?
Well, one thing, they did picket duty. They did picket duty all around the fleet.
Picket duty is...
That means they had destroyers strung out around the whole fleet, and then each ship, like we had two escorts, two destroyers, but all around the whole thing was picket ships, and of course when the suiciders come in, they had to get by them, and so we had a lot of them sunk.
So what about the submarine attack? So there was fear of the kamikaze from the air and submarines from the sea.
That was always a threat. You never knew about those things, As a matter of fact, this is kind of like a side thing. We were coming from the Philippines going to the Marianas, and as we went over, we didn't know it at the time, but the Indianapolis, you probably heard about the Indianapolis, the one that was carried the bomb over. The very next day, we went right over the same course that they had going to Guam, and of course they were going to the Philippines. We did something drifted them away from us because we didn't see nothing the next day. We went just right over it. I got all the charts at home.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was life like aboard ship? Now, you describe the ship that you were on again.
Well, it was a small carrier.
Small carrier.
Yeah. After the war, they took all the planes off and welded bunks about 5 or so high, and they called that the magic carpet. And we went over to in the Philippines in that area 3 trips after the war. I'd signed up for the duration of 6 months. They held me for the duration of 6 months.
What did you do on the magic carpet? This was after the war?
What we did was haul passengers.
Oh.
Picking up these Army and Navy and Marines that had
take them home.
Exactly.
So your small carrier became a troop transport to ferry
right,
troops home
exactly
after the
right.
war.
There were several of them. They did that.
That was probably a party time on board the carrier, wasn't it? People were
not there. When we got back to the States there for a week before we headed out again, that was party time.
Take us back to when there was on the magic carpet ride. They welded bunks 6 high, and you had troops.
5 or 6. I kind of forgot exactly.
You had troops that were there. The war was over. They were going home. What was the atmosphere like aboard ship then? Do you remember?
Yeah, all these passengers, they had these cots, these unfolding cots. And I guess some of them had most of the money because they all had money belts.
Yeah.
And they'd get a poker game going. And in order to get it, they had different size games, some like 500, some 1,000. And every one of them was willing to lose that amount when they get in the game. And when it was over, one guy had all the money. And then they'd go somewhere else and start another game, another cot someplace. And that was going on the hangar deck just about every day.
Anybody ever get thumped on the head and their money stolen?
No, that kind of stuff didn't go on, I don't think. Not in my time, anyway.
Thank you for the service to your country. Are you glad you went?
When it was all over, yeah.
Once you survived and came home.
Right. Made it. That's about all I can say, really.
Was all your duty on the small carrier?
All my duty?
Yeah, and during the war.
Well, when I first went aboard there, I was in the deck force. And you do all kinds of deck duties. And you watch gun watches you have 8-hour work day, and then you stand watch for 4 hours, so sometimes you didn't get very much sleep. This went on and on and on. But after I got out of that and went into ship service, life was a lot better for me.
What islands in the Pacific did you visit on the small carrier?
Several.
Did you ever go back there after the war?
No.
Did you ever want to?
I did until I saw on TV one time Espiritu Santo in the New Hebrides. That was like a backup for Guadalcanal, and they kept using it for storage. Underneath, the palm trees were all in line, the French and British island, and they raised coconuts there. And underneath was no jungle, all just grass. They had wild horses running around. But anyway, that was a beautiful island. And a few years, probably 20 years ago, I don't know, I was watching on TV there, and they had a little story about that island, and jungle was growing into the administrative building. And it went back to jungle because, the value of coconuts after, cholesterol and all that business really went to pot, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you for the service to your country, sir, and we do appreciate you taking time to visit with us today on KGAL's Valley Talk and also on Operation Eagle's Wings. We're filming this, and you can watch it live on the internet on our website, operationeagleswings.us. So thank you for the service to your country.
Thank you.
Hey, we've got some things we want to give away right now. We've got a pair of tickets to the Woodburn Drags. Go ahead and, while we're giving away tickets here, we'll change positions here. Sir, come on over here. We have kind of limited quarters here, and so we'll want to hand you the microphone. And while you're getting settled in, we're going to give away some Speedway tickets. Willamette Speedway, we got a pair of passes there. And also 2 passes to the Woodburn Drags. We'll do these at the same time. You can either call the station at 926-KGAL or 451-KGAL, 926-8683, or send me an email, dave@kgal.com. Tell you what, since we're on remote location right now, let's have you do this. Call the station for the ticket giveaways for the Woodburn Drags and the Willamette Speedway passes. 926-8683 or 451-KGAL, and the first caller to call wins those tickets both for the Woodburn Drags and also for the Willamette Speedway. 451-KGAL, 926-KGAL. And thank you for listening to us on Valley Talk. Let's see what time it is. And 11:22. You know what? Let's take a commercial break here, and we'll come back here. We are broadcasting live from the American Legion Post 10 in Albany, brand new building. By the way, we're going to be back here broadcasting once again live this coming Tuesday, and we're going to talk specifically about the plans for the new building. We'll have some representatives of American Legion Post 10 here on Valley Talk talking about what they plan to do with this brand spanking new building. That and more. But today we're honoring World War II veterans, and specifically because it is the anniversary of the Normandy invasion and D-Day. 9,000 troops were killed or wounded that day, but more than 100,000 survived of the 160,000 that landed on that fateful day in Normandy to free Europe from oppression. So we honor all of those men today, and in some cases women. This is Valley Talk, and we will continue in just a moment. Back we are once again live. We are coming from the American Legion Post 10 in Albany, Oregon. A very big thank you for them allowing us to use this facility on this historic day that we want to remember all those who fought in World War II, and specifically those who fought and especially those who died in the D-Day invasion. This is the anniversary of the D-Day invasion. 160,000 Allied troops attacked the beaches. More than 9,000 were killed or wounded, but more than 100,000 survived and marched across Europe and freed Europe from the Axis powers and gave freedom back to that country. We're talking now to Garner Poole. Garner, thank you for being with us on Valley Talk and Operation Eagle's Wings.
Yeah, I was U.S. Navy, South Pacific during the war, and toured to Europe after the war was over with, but I survived over 2 years in the South Pacific. We've had kamikazes come over us a couple of times, 3 times maybe, but they didn't like us. I was on a small ship, and they was looking for big ones.
So you were a small ship, you were a destroyer?
Destroyer for about 6 months of it, and then I was on a destroyer tender for over a year and a half.
So the destroyers, one of the jobs of the destroyers was running picket lines. Were you on one of the pickets?
We did that. We escorted carriers and troop ships and supply ships and anything that needed help. We were there for anti-aircraft fire. I loaded 5.8 38 rifles. I had trained earlier on the 1.1, a British-made gun, and also 2020. I forgot now. My mind's going haywire. So 20 millimeter, I guess, 40 millimeter. Was on that too.
I asked this question a moment ago. I'll ask it of you. A lot of people describe World War II veterans as the world's greatest generation because they kept tyranny from overcoming the world. When somebody comes up to you and says, thank you for your service and thank you for being a member of the world's greatest generation, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel good. I spent a few days in Washington, D.C. last September with this honor flight bid, and I'm telling you, I really felt honored but at the same time remembering that I had friends that were elsewhere that were lost, gone, and I was so thankful that I was able to be back and be able to take part in some of these things through the American Legion, through the VFW, through all these things that come about that we can tell somebody about and maybe, hopefully, make it better for them.
Well, thank you for your service. Let's talk about Honor Flight in just a moment. We had two movie showings, Honor Flight, One Last Mission at the Pix in Albany, at the River Center in Lebanon. We raised more than $5,000 to send World War II veterans like yourself back to Washington, D.C. for a weekend on Honor Flight. Now, you say that was a special trip for you.
It really was. It was a top-notch thing. I think of not just ourselves, but especially the Vietnam veterans who had no honor when they come home. And I was one that was 2 years after the war was over. Nobody knew I come home either except my family. And my wife come home with me. She had been elsewhere with me on the way. But anyway, I just felt that it was a good thing to have people see, and we were. I mean, people loved us. And they showed it, and I think it's wonderful that we could be there and do that, and maybe the next be the Korean boys and gals, and also later on maybe the Vietnam veterans and others that might have a similar likewise type of thing to show the memorials back there and what's going on in the world around, really.
One of the nice things that World War II veterans have told me about Honor Flight is you're more than just tourists. You can go back there with fellow World War II veterans, you meet some new friends, you go to the memorial, and it's a chance for you to kind of have some closure and kind of share your feelings with guys who went through this with you.
Yes, this is right. And we had escorts. Some I had, one I had hoped to see from Alaska that was, I hope, might be a daughter or granddaughter of a friend of mine that was in Europe and with Patton, but I got one from California instead. I didn't know her, and then I had to go in a wheelchair and had to get a bigger guy to hand in a wheelchair. I wasn't that big, but it was not easy to push on to some of those places that we had to go to.
Let's go back to the Pacific Ocean. Your time aboard a destroyer running picket. What was it like in the Pacific? Hot, muggy? What were the conditions like?
It always seemed like it was about 130 degrees. It was hot. I spent very little time above decks. I was below decks most of the time inside. But when I did get out and get sunburned, I cooked from my hairline to my trunk line and from my bottom of my truck to the shoe line, and I still can't stand the sun, and that's been 70 years ago.
So you spent a lot of time below deck?
Well, I was a barber, and I stayed inside most all day during the sunshine part of it.
Hot and muggy down below deck?
Oh, yes. The air conditioning wasn't working. They didn't have it. Not in that temperature. It was hot, hot, hot. I never saw a thermometer, but I know it just, pardon my word, but I could use a swear word, hot.
Hotter than heck.
Yes. But it didn't make any difference which ship I was on. It was all hot out there.
Now, running picket duty for a destroyer, you were pretty much a target because you were one of the reasons they liked destroyers for picket duty was they were fast maneuverable, but you guys were kind of the lightning rod if the enemy was coming.
Yeah, we were kind of a showcase, I think. They'd see us first, hopefully. That's what the bigger ships with the larger crews and supplies and such as that. They didn't want them hit, that's for sure. Carriers had several thousand people aboard on the large ones, counting flyers. And
as far as your duty on the destroyer, you were a barber on the destroyer. Yeah. When there was an attack, when the destroyer was attacked, you obviously had duties to perform, didn't you?
Yeah, I was on the 5H-38 most of the time. I was loading the powder that went into to throw the shell out there. That was really interesting.
What was that like?
Well, it was work.
Smelly, hot, loud?
Yes, I'm loud. I know I still have a problem with my ears. I don't. I wear hearing aids most of the time, but my ears are plugged up now, so I couldn't wear my hearing aids today. But I'm hearing you fine.
Good. Did your ship ever get hit?
No, we were never hit. We had kamikazes come within 30 feet overhead, and I still can't see a movie because we were sitting in an island waiting for the movie to start, playing pinochle, and two of them come over, so we...
Any warning, or did they just... You hear
No, they was probably 100 feet from us when we saw them, heard them, or anything. They were right there.
Was there a special noise that they made as they were, because they were diving?
Well, these come over the island probably at no more than about 100 feet high, and they kind of slowed down a little bit over us. They probably wasn't more than 30 or 40 feet over us. I could feel the heat off the afterburners, and I still haven't been able to see a movie since, not in the theater.
Why is that? Just because of the memory, or?
Yeah, the memory.
Okay.
I think, like a lot of people have memories, the wrong thing that gives them shaking feelings when they...
It's just hard to watch a movie about a kamikaze pilot on the screen.
It's just hard to watch a movie, period.
Any movie. Because you were watching a movie when that came over.
We were waiting for the movie, actually. We hadn't watched it yet. But it made us sweat. We headed for our rifles, and
so still this many decades after the war, there's still that memory.
70 years since then, but it's still
vivid.
I've seen one movie in the theater in all that time. I see questions on crossword puzzles about movie actors and all this sort of stuff. I skip. I can't remember because I didn't see them.
Well, Garner, I want to personally thank you for the service to your country, and everyone that's here and everybody that's listening that's a World War II veteran, and Afghanistan and Iraq, if you're serving your country. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
This is Valley Talk, Operation Eagle's Wings, honoring all who serve, leaving no one behind. We're going to take a break here on Valley Talk, and we will be back with more guests on the show as we're coming live from the American Legion Post 10 in Albany. Again, don't forget, we're going to be back again here Tuesday talking about this brand new building and what the American Legion plans to do in the future here. This is Valley Talk and the Eagle. We will be right back.
Thank you.
And live we are once again here at the American Legion, Post 10 in Albany. I'm Dave Adams. This is Valley Talk and also Operation Eagle's Wings, honoring all who serve and leaving no one behind. Today is a special day. This is the anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Normandy, 160,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches. More than 9,000 were killed or wounded that day, but more than 100,000 troops started a march across Europe that freed Europe from the Axis powers. It's been several decades since D-Day, but we should not forget the sacrifice that 9,000, mainly men, paid with their lives on that fateful day. But it was the start of freeing Europe from tyranny, and we are here to honor those people today and honor all who serve. With me right now at the American Legion in Albany is David Russell, and he also served on a destroyer. Talked to a lot of guys that served on destroyers.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of destroyers in the war.
A lot of destroyers, yeah.
Now, your destroyer saw a lot of action, took some kamikaze hits. What?
Oh, yes.
How many times were you hit by kamikazes?
One time, but three of them hit us, yes. Two motored. I can't remember the name of the planes, but...
What was the name of your ship?
Mahan.
The USS Mahan?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you on that? Were you on that for the entire
3
war?
years. She was also sunk December the 7th in 1944 in the Philippines.
Were you on it when she was
Yes.
sunk?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Well,
That was a hectic day, obviously.
It was just a big battle that went on.
Did you?
Trying to survive.
What took the ship down? Was it submarine? Was it?
Oh, we eventually had
fire?
to sink it, after.
Oh,
but it was on fire, and ammunition was exploding, and the old man suggested we abandon ship to save lives. Mm-hmm.
Call the old man. You call the captain the old man.
Captain of the ship. Mm-hmm.
So you saw a lot of action on the USS Mahan.
Oh yes, we had. I can't remember how many invasions we had, and shore bombardments and aircraft attacking us. But we fired a lot of rounds, right?
In fact,
we also sunk 2 Japanese ships. One was a seaplane tender and one was a submarine tender.
you said that you fired so many shells that you actually wore out the gun barrels.
Yes, we had to come back and get new gun barrels.
Because you fired so many rounds from the ship.
The shells were tumbling when it left the barrel.
Now, one of the things that you're suffering with today is hearing loss because of all the explosions and the noise aboard the
concussions, and not very good for your ears.
So on those big firefights and the kamikaze hits, what was it, for those of us like me who were not on a destroyer and being attacked by the enemy and taking kamikaze hits, could you describe for us a little bit what that was like?
Well, one bomber came, and it was about 50 yards from us. It just exploded. I think the 40 millimeters hit us. It just exploded in midair, and the debris just flew all over us. And then I can't remember just too much about it now, but the only thing I remember was hitting us, and when they hit the ship, the ship would rock way over and come back again.
And you finally had to sink it.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you signed up? Did you sign up or were drafted?
I joined the Navy in '39. I went aboard the battleship Oklahoma in March '40.
What did you do on the Oklahoma?
I was in a deck division at the time.
How long were you on the Oklahoma?
2 years, almost 2 years. And she was sunk in Pearl Harbor.
You weren't on her when she was sunk, were you?
Yes.
You were on the Oklahoma when
yes.
she was sunk in Pearl. So you were in Pearl Harbor December 7th.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What was that like? Sunday morning?
Well, I couldn't believe it. They said this is an attack. The Japanese are attacking us, and about that time those torpedoes hit us. 9 of them hit us, torpedoes, and several bomb hits. And as clean as those ships were, back then, I don't know where the dust came from, but boy, you could just see the dust fly around. I think it's probably from the vent and the wiring situation. All the wiring going through.
Where were you on the Oklahoma when she was attacked?
I was in the living compartment, getting ready to go to work.
Sunday morning, nice and quiet.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all heck breaks loose.
Yeah, of course, in the Navy, you work every day of the week.
Right. But it was a relatively peaceful morning, and then it all started to come apart.
But when I left the ship was, by the time I got out from down in the living quarters, the ship was rolling over pretty fast. I think they said 8 to 11 minutes it capsized.
But you had a chance to get out.
I was trying to get out. I'd open up a hatch to go through, and somebody on the other side would dog the hatch down. But then I'd go through the compartments trying to get out, and the lockers had fallen over. The concussion or the noise when the torpedoes hit. That ship really rocks, and the lockers would fall over, and then you had to divert yourself around to get out of the ship.
That's a big ship. The Oklahoma was a big battleship.
She was a big 14-inch guns, right?
And 8 to 11 minutes, and she was going down.
She capsized, yeah.
So you had very little time to scramble out from below to get up on deck. You finally managed to get out. If you don't mind me asking, what was that like? Were you just trying to, I got to get out of here? What was going through your mind?
I had to get out of there. I had to save my life. I wanted to live.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you finally came through a hatch, or how'd you get out?
Well, I just kept pounding those dogs. I kept pounding those dogs down, and I'd pound them open again. I think the guy on the other side just gave up, and he probably left too.
And let you get out.
Yeah, because those torpedoes hitting us, and all that concussion going through there, it was no fun. I wanted to get out. I wanted to save myself, right?
So December 7th, you survived. You came out. When you came out of the ship was going over.
Yeah, she was.
Did you jump in the water? Was there? How'd you get away?
The ship was. We had a water line coming over from the beach from Ford Island, and I got a hold of that water line, and I hoisted myself up over the deck as the ship was capsizing.
And so it was rolling underneath you.
And then as the ship was capsizing, I just went over with it, and then I made a big jump. We had the sandbags hanging over the sides so the two ships wouldn't rub against each other.
Sure.
And one of the lines, I grabbed a hold of one of the lines, and I hoisted myself aboard the Maryland. She was tied up alongside of us.
And at the end of the day, the carnage, Pearl Harbor was a smoking mess. Battleships were burning everywhere.
Yeah, the fuel, the fuel from those, I think it was from the Arizona and the West Virginia, or one of them. The fuel was on fire, and those people were swimming in that water. That water,
the water was on
fuel
fire.
was on fire, and it was coming between the two ships, and I didn't want to get in the water if I didn't have to.
A lot of people died being burned up in the water.
Yeah, up in the administration, up in the administration building on Fort Island, they took all the bodies there and the burnt people, and it was it wasn't a very good sight.
So at the end of the day, Pearl Harbor's a mess. There's wreckage everywhere, flames, ships turned upside down. The U.S. Pacific Fleet had been dealt a severe blow. What was the attitude like? Was you were mad at the Japanese? You wanted to get back at them? What was it like?
Oh yes, that was the big thing. They did this. We wanted to get back at them. We did, as far as I'm concerned. We did. Yeah.
So you went from the Oklahoma to the destroyer, the Mayhem.
Yeah, I got aboard the Mayhem the 23rd, with the 23rd of December.
How did you suffer any wounds from Pearl?
No.
Luckily, you were able to scramble off the ship.
Yeah, I'm just a survivor, that's all.
Okay. When you think of Pearl Harbor, what comes to your mind? What's the first reaction when I say the word Pearl Harbor?
You mean the attack?
Yeah.
It's sort of hard to believe that the Japanese would sneak attack, with no warning.
Okay. Then you went to the destroyer, and you served in that for the remainder of World War II in the Pacific Ocean. Saw tremendous.
It was sunk in December 7th, 1944, 3 years after the.
What happened? Where did you go after the Mayhem was sunk?
Eventually, I went aboard the Bremerton, a heavy cruiser.
And you served on that till the rest of the war?
I served 3 years on the Bremerton. We put it out of commission in San Francisco.
So you had two ships shot out from under you.
Yes.
You're a lucky man.
Very. Survivor.
There you go. What? Boy, I'm almost speechless here. Thank you for the service to your country, and I'm glad you survived. And what message do you have for the next generation about
keep America safe? It's so nice to be free. They don't realize what it's like in the other countries, and I've been all over the world.
So it was worth the fight.
It is.
I know loss of life is painful, but sometimes you have to fight.
Very painful. No glory.
Okay. David, thank you for the service to your country. We're going to take a break here on Valley Talk and Operation Eagle's Wings. We'll come back. We'll have more for the American Legion, Post 10 in Albany. Again, a very big thank you for allowing us to be here, and we'll be right back on the show. KGAL, Lebanon, Albany, Corvallis. I'm Dave Adams, and we are honoring those who served in World War II today, specifically in the D-Day invasion. We tried to find some folks here locally to talk to you about D-Day, but we were not able to find anybody who was actually there. But the stories that you've heard today are amazing about the men that sacrificed so much for their country during World War II, so we honor all World War II veterans today. With us right now is Del Riley, and Del Riley was with the 10th Mountain Division Mountaineers. Thank you for the service to your country.
You're welcome.
So what did you do in Europe? What were the Mountaineers all about?
We were trained to fight in the mountains. We were the only division so trained in our U.S. Army. So we wound up in the Alps in Italy, where there was still snow on the ground and high mountains to climb, and that was our specialty, the training we had for the mountain climbing, because
The enemy at that time was well positioned on top of all the mountains, so we had to grade them.
What were the special challenges in cold weather fighting? Did your guns jam? Food was, of course, frozen. What were the special, unique challenges because of cold weather fighting?
Well, to keep ourselves moving, frostbite was common. As far as the guns jamming, they worked quite well. I don't recall I've ever had one jam, but that's entirely possible.
But frostbite was a big deal.
Yeah, staying somewhat comfortable, which was very difficult to do as cold as it was.
Did you have to do some fighting in the Alps?
Right, in the Italian Alps. Our objective was to get over the Alps into the Po Valley, down through Austria, and into Germany from that direction. That was the only direction that wasn't circled. Berlin and Germany was being rapidly, completely circled in, but for the direction we came from, it was still not. So that was our objective, to get through the Alps and into Austria and then eventually into Germany. But the war ended in spring, so we didn't have to go any further.
Did you volunteer for the Mountaineers, or were you assigned?
I was assigned. I got my notice on my birthday, 18th birthday, and I went in. That was in May, and I went in July and served until I was discharged.
One of the descriptions that people have for World War II veterans, you're the world's greatest generation. What do you think of when people say that about you?
I don't think we did anything that any other person wouldn't have done at that age if they happened to have been in that particular generation.
Thank you for the service to your country, sir. Let's talk.
You're
We've got
welcome.
about 2 minutes left to go in the show. Let's talk to Mark Jensen. Mark served in Europe and France. And what did you do in World War II in Europe, France? What was your job?
I worked on a 40-millimeter gun, and we tracked the enemy planes. And I was an elevation tracker. And we shot down planes and buzz bombs.
Buzz bombs. Those were the
pilotless bomb.
The predecessor for the rocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You could shoot those down?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we better. Sometimes we'd shoot them down and land in our lap.
Yeah.
Not quite, but we had one land about 50 feet in front of us, and it's getting pretty close.
Very too close for comfort.
Yes, it is.
What do you think of when people call your generation, World War II veterans, the world's greatest generation?
Well, the greatest generation that ever lived, but we had the American people standing behind us at that time during World War II.
What message do you have for young people today about duty, honor, and country?
Well, it's my duty. I appreciate living in America. It's the greatest nation ever discovered.
Well, sir, we thank you for the service to your country. We're getting close to end of time here. We'll be back here at American Legion Post 10 this coming Tuesday to talk more about the Legion here. I'm Dave Adams. This is KGAL, Operation Eagles, Wings, and Valley Talk.